All right, so here we are, 0-7. No, not a score. That is a record of our favorite NFL franchise. My name is Matt Minich. This is Bengals Chalk Talk here on Orange and Black Insider. Not a lot good going on right now. 0-7, not much to feel excited about. Injuries mounting as they seem to every single year, but it doesn't matter. When they were healthy, they weren't winning it either. So definitely some disappointing things, and we'll briefly touch on last week's game. But what do we do here? We break down film. We get cranking on next week. We take the Fido approach. Forget it, drive on, and it's not actually forget it, but you can figure that out for yourself. Like to keep my rating here, but you got to move on. You got to make a plan to win, and that's how I look at things. So that's what we're gonna do is move on and look at it. But first, let's take a look back at something that stood out to me as just being absolutely ugly in last week's game against the Jaguars, and this is early in the game. So the Jags got the ball right away, and they drove the ball down the field. Now, I've talked about this before, so don't get me wrong, the Bengals defense isn't good, all right? They've got some problems, I think both schematically and personnel-wise. They've got issues. However, this is a defense that really knows how to compete, and they can fight, and they step up in situations. They keep this team in games. And if this offense was doing a little bit more for them, we could be in a different position here, which is, you hire a young offensive coach, you think you're going to get something out of the offense, and that's neither here nor there. We'll talk about some of that next week, a little foreshadowing as we in the bye week start talking about quarterbacks. But right now we're going to talk about Jaguars get the ball, drive down the field. They get down to the 1 yard line, and they got absolutely stuffed. All right, so the Bengals defense really clamped down on them. They did a good job with this. That they after giving up a drive that went down the field, they got to 4th and 1, and this is a defense that is bad at stopping the run. And Leonard Fournette is a good running back. Especially in a short yard situation. He's a guy that can make some plays, as we talked about last week. So 4th and 1, and they give the ball to Leonard Fournette, and the Bengals stuffed it. To their credit, they did a great job. Honestly, a goal line stand is one of the most exciting, one of the more impressive things in football when you can shut down a team like that. Just be really physical with them. So Bengals get the ball back. Now, 1st and 10, 1 yard line. Dalton sneaks. It's a pretty standard thing to do down there. They get to 2nd and 6, and Dalton throws a short pass, not quite for a first down. That puts them in 3rd and 1 on the 10-yard line, trying to keep this drive alive. Trying to really take some of that momentum that they stole with that goal line stop here on the first drive and do something with it. And they come out and they run the ball with Mixon. Now, let's take a look at that play. They came out, they motioned into a bunch formation, and they tossed it. Now, I get that people don't like the play call. I don't love it myself, but it can work sometimes. I'm not the type to say, well, you never want to do this in that situation. I do think that there can be reasons, especially if you're looking at leverage of things, that something like that can be successful. But the fact of the matter is, it was a short yardage situation. The Jags came out in the defense where they did have a number of guys in the box, but to be able to for Mixon to run straight in the A gap and get 1 yard before the linebacker got there, that seems a lot more possible than working the toss play to the edge, or even Dalton taking it again. How easy would it be for Dalton when they have an A gap wide open for Dalton just to pick up a single yard? They already ran one sneak earlier, but they're not taking it away here. Smartly, the Jaguars weren't taking it away in this situation. So, yeah, I mean, doesn't make it, don't love the play call. Let's put it that way. But also the design and the execution are really something that I question as well. So it was Dalton's under center. They've got one receiver split wide to the right, and then they motion CJ Uzama over to get into a bunch with Dalton under center and Mixon behind him. So Uzama is the number 3 receiver in the bunch, so the tightest receiver in the bunch. On the line of scrimmage, the number 2 receiver is Tyler Boyd, and then outside of him, off the ball, is Alex Erickson as the number 1 receiver. So you think about it. Now you're trying to hit the edge, okay? So you're trying to hit the edge. Who are the most important players to block? Obviously, you've got the corner out there. He's not really a run-first player, but he's the farthest, widest guy out there. He's got to be accounted for. He's got to be blocked. You've got a defensive end standing up inside of the bunch. You've got really a nickel guy, or possibly safety, but you got a defensive back anyway, an invert player down there who is on that edge as well. You've got a linebacker who's cheated pretty far over to that side. Really, both linebackers you've got to account for. Now, the only other player left on that side of the formation is the nose tackle, and he's, I believe, in a 2 technique. But you're really, like on a toss play, you're definitely not expecting that guy to make the play. So how are they going to account for these guys? What are they going to do? So, first things first, starting with the corner, what they do with the corner, they've got Uzama takes a wide path out and gets a body on him. All right. Now, he's kind of pushing him. The guy does work upfield. This is a block that could be effective, might be enough, but certainly not a very good block there for Uzama. The number 1 receiver, Erickson, blocks down on that invert player. All right, that rock down defensive back like I was talking about. All right, and he cracks down on him from a short distance. And look at his knees going up in the air. I mean, he's one of their smaller receivers. I mean, this is a corner, so it should be a fine matchup physically. But man, he is just on skates, getting pushed back, and he ends up getting knocked over somebody too. But man, he's just getting pushed around out there, not looking pretty there for Alex Erickson. And then the number 2 receiver blocks down on the defensive end, cracks on the defensive end. That's Tyler Boyd. Again, doesn't do a very good job. He actually kind of sets for it. It's not a running crack block. You can't really do stuff like that anymore, but it's still a crack block, and he kind of sets almost like he's pass setting. And this is the exact opposite. I mean, you got to hit this guy right in the side, and you got to get him down. You can't allow penetration, and he gives up major penetration. All right, and really gets in the way of John Jerry, who's pulling around to the edge. So, bad job there too. That needed to be a better block. Like I said, he's setting for it. Just step right at him. Step right at him. Hit him. Throw off his momentum. Don't let him take a step upfield. And they're messing that up. Now, on the offensive line, as I said, John Jerry, he's pulling out around. He ends up having to kind of loop and go deep as he comes around. Billy Price kind of releases like he's releasing just like a normal, not pulling out, just releases up to linebacker depth, and he's heading out wide here for that outside backer. Now, that should really be Jerry's guy. As we say, we've already got the corner out of the screen. He's addressed. This guy, the invert, crackdown, defensive end crackdown. So the next guy really is the backer. Jerry's a wider player and he's pulling around. It makes a lot more sense for him to be the guy who's going to block that. Instead, Price is taking that angle. Is that a mistake by Price? Should he have been going for the inside backer? That would make more sense to me. But there's no way of really knowing because Jerry is so thrown off that you don't know if that's what he was going for. He's just so thrown off by the penetration on the front there. And he does end up picking that guy up. So the last guy left is that nose. All right. And I use the term nose tackle, and I'm not strictly referring to a zero technique in a 3-4. Like some people use it that way. But anybody, I can refer to a nose tackle as anybody who's lined up really between the guards. So this guy's actually, one technique on Hopkins. And they're asking Hopkins to block him, which you wouldn't think would be that big of a deal with it being an outside run. But, guess what? Guess who's going to make the play? It's that guy. Things get so messed up, and they lose 3 yards on this play. On 3rd and 1, they have to punt out of their own end zone. I mean, so it's pretty ridiculous overall. And here's the issue, too. So we're seeing this awful execution all around here. But I also think what these 3 players are doing doesn't make any sense. As I kind of talked about before, the players who need to be accounted for here are the 2 linebackers, right? The 2 linebackers and that defensive tackle. If you've got Jerry pulling around, he should be pulling out and blocking the widest guy. I don't understand why Billy Price is working up to a backer. To me, it's you want him blocking down and just pull your center around, pull Hopkins around. He used to be a guard. He can do that. This isn't a shotgun snap or anything. I think it's a little easier from under center, actually, to be able to kind of do that. Quarterback gets out of there. You're fine. Ball security is much of an issue. So it's a pin and pull scenario where Price should block down on that guy. They'll take care of him, and there's no way that guy's making the tackle then if they do it this way. And then they could take Hopkins and loop him around, pull him around up to that backer. That's going to be a much better play. That play makes a lot more sense. The angles are better. It's more sound. You still we've had poor execution. The receivers were really screwing things up on the edges we talked about. But that's a much better look if they do it that way. All right, so let's be done with that unpleasantness and move on to the next unpleasantness. The Los Angeles Rams, not the Rams they used to be. So definitely having some struggles this year. And today we're going to specifically focus on their run game. Todd Gurley has had some major ups and downs this year. First week was very good. Second week was pretty good. And then he has, continuously dropped off. And last week, he was well under 3 yards per carry against the Atlanta Falcons. Not a team you really think of that's going to shut down Todd Gurley by any stretch. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, some of the problems they've had, and also the successes they had. Take a look at some plays from that game, and talk about these things the Bengals can do. Because at the end of the day, something's got to give here. The Rams have struggled running the ball. The Bengals have really struggled running the ball. It's another story, but the Bengals have been bad as a rush defense. They have not been able to stop the run very well. So how can they stop Todd Gurley? What can they do? So on actually their first play of the game against the Falcons, the Rams motioned. They were in, they had 2 receivers tight and one guy kind of like a tight slot with a receiver spread out on the other side. They motioned around, ended up getting into basically a bunch look. So they motioned the tight, really tight end who was in an H-back position over. And then they actually motioned the wider receiver inside of that guy. So they kind of changed the way they aligned in their bunch. And why are they doing that? They're doing that to set up blocking angles for the backside, really, of the zone. So they are running the zone play like the Bengals have seen quite a bit of this year, where the handoff actually comes on the side opposite of the zone blocking. And, the big thing here, and this happens a few times in this game, is they don't get to the Mike backer. So, they've got good solid, base blocks from their left tackle, their left guard, some good blocking from the tight ends and tight end and receivers on the backside, picking things up. But really, it's it's that Mike running through on them. And the Mike runs through on them because, the combo block and Austin Blythe, the right guard, he's really just gearing down towards the nose tackle who's in a 1. All right, this is an under front. The nose tackle's in a 1 technique. All right, and he didn't even see that Mike really run by him. He kind of turns all the way around and almost tries to chase him. Mike runs right by him though, so he gets way too committed to that. The nose steps across the center's face right away. The second that happens, the guard on the combo block should be working up to the next level. He doesn't. It gets by. Deion Jones gets into the backfield, and that is a tackle for a loss of 1 on the play. Now, another thing that you can do, and the Falcons did this at one point later on, and the Bengals can do, is in running situations, send that Mike. Just send him. You obviously got to work out the coverage behind it and everything, but blitz that guy. He can run through, and that's gonna screw them up. That's gonna cause them a lot of problems if you send that guy on through and get him through fast where he's unblocked, which has been obviously a big issue for the Bengals. Has been having their backers get there on time. Just send them. Just that's the way the coach can make it happen. The guys aren't making the reads. All right, well, you make the reads for them. Tell them to go. All right, so later on that same drive, this is a formation that you see a lot out of the Rams. They came out and they were, I would call it wing twins. All right, when I say wing, I mean there's a tight end and an H-back on the same side, and twins is obviously 2 receivers. All right, these twins happen to be a little on the tighter side. So, hey, that's a heavy run formation. It's something the Bengals have had trouble, and you've seen me talk about how the Bengals have had trouble aligning to that formation and really accounting for all the gaps. The Falcons match up, it's an 8-man box that they get into against it, which is good. And, just to kind of take a look at what happened there. Wing twins, jet motion. We just talked about the Mike backer. They got to block the Mike backer. They didn't block the Mike backer before. And, guess what? That jet motion, that affects the backers. It takes the backers out of it a little bit. So when that motion comes, it really helps to set up that block. And there's 2 really inside backers here. And with that jet motion, those guys get flowing. And left tackle Andrew Whitworth, remember him? Yeah, we all felt much better when he was around. And the center, Brian Allen, they're able to get up to these linebackers. So they got that thing all blocked up. All right, and then they everybody's going zone stepping to the right, except the tight end, the wing or H-back, Gerald Everett, who comes screaming across, right? I call that a swipe play, where he swipes across the backfield and blocks out on the defensive end. All right, so common way to run the inside zone. Now, what don't they have blocked here is that cutback player. Okay, that extra guy in the box, really, becomes an extra guy because of the motion. So the motion helping them out with the linebackers, but that inverted player who's over the receiver, he shuffles into the box. He becomes that cutback player, and they've got nobody to block him. He really what forces Gurley to take that inside and kind of run into his offensive line's back, run into the guard's back, and ends up being a 1-yard gain in the play. So have a cutback player. The cutback has been something that the Bengals have struggled with, and their alignments being able to have that extra guy, that guy folding into the box. And overall, defensive backs making tackles was a struggle early in the year. Then they've gotten a little bit better with, but folding that guy into the box, that's something that the Bengals can do. To have that cutback player to take this sort of thing away. All right, so even though it was a bad day overall for Gurley and for the run game, it wasn't on every single play, and this is really an example of that. So here it's the same thing formationally. The receiver starts on that wing side and motions over all right, and really gets into the twins wing look. But then they send that jet motion again. So let me refresh here. All right, so they're going to send that jet motion again. Now this time they've only got one backer in the box. All right, so even including this guy. Before I was calling it 8-man box, and I was including the guy who comes in late after the jet motion. It's going to end up being a 7-man box here, and that's going to change the play, and that's going to change the assignments on the play a little bit. So really, it's the same thing that they're zone blocking, they're bringing Gerald Everett around. All right, the jet motion makes that backer flow, so we're taking care of the mic. Right, what we talked about in the first play was they had problems with the mic, taking care of that mic with that jet motion. Now, because there's not a second player in the block, in the box, the second linebacker in the box, Witt doesn't have to release up. All right, before the center was going to the mic, Witt was going to the other inside backer. Now he doesn't have to, so he blocks back on the defensive end. So Gerald Everett, as he swipes across, he's able to work up and block that cutback player. Now, not a great block by Everett by any means, but he is able to make that block. It's getting a body on it, and that guy's not just showing in the gap and forcing the tight cutback like he did earlier in the game. So here in the third quarter, with this formational this alignment by the defense, that allows them to get another body in there to block that extra guy that they weren't blocking before. And guess what? Now it's a gain of 8. So that's the difference in it being able to block that cutback player. Takes a bad play, a 1-yard gain from earlier, and turns it into a gain of 8 on the play. So that's the importance of the cutback player. The Bengals have to make sure they have a cutback player. That guy knows what he's doing, and he can shift and get into the box. With these jet motions, that creates an opportunity to do that when you're not in man. When you're in man, obviously that guy's running with the jet motion. But when they are in any type of zone, this sort of thing happens, that should be an alert. That should be, a light going off in the head of that defensive back, saying, hey, this could be that. Hey, the motion's going away. It could be a run. I'm going to be the cutback player on this. So definitely something that they need to be thinking of and aware of. Having that cutback player is going to be a big part of trying to stop this running game. All right, so I talked a little now about some things that the Bengals can do, some defensive things that gave the Rams some troubles. But I really think Gurley's hurting himself too. He's made some suspect reads. Things happen fast. So sometimes it's just kind of the speed at which things come about can make things difficult. But he's definitely had some troubles. So we're going to look at a play in the first half where they're in a bunch and they're running a zone play opposite of the bunch. So the left guard is able to get up to the linebacker. They're trying to run that zone play, and really here, Gurley's looking at the blocks on the defensive line. That's how you read zone. You read inside out on those blocks on the defensive line. And if you look at the first block, right, left guard's out of there, he reaches up. All right, why is he out of there? He's out because the center, Brian Allen, has done a great job, really, reaching and getting a reach block on the 2 technique. So he does an excellent job with that. That's a really good block. All right. Now, Whitworth struggles a little bit. All right. So that's the next block. That's the block outside. He kind of bases the guy up right away. And it's Adrian Claiborne. It doesn't really get any movement. And then, from the initial look, Gurley's seeing Witt's butt in the hole, right? So with where Whitworth was initially on the block, he's thinking, I got to go inside of Whitworth. And with where Brian Allen is out on the block, he's thinking, I got to go outside of Brian Allen. So there's only one option, all right? that's where he's taking that thing. But then this happens, Witt loses. Witt loses on the block. Claiborne gets to the inside, and he kind of tries to bang it up there once that happens. But so that's a rough block. Probably. Like I look at the read a little bit, and like I said, I understand that the initial read told him to go inside. That's what happened, and then the defender makes a good play there. So Witt's block really hurts him on that. So later in the game, we've got another example here, and this is really Gurley being indecisive, and Gurley, in my estimation, just making a bad read in the long run. So it is that wing twins look again, but this time probably to help him out with the blocking angles, they take the wing and put him inside of the tight end. So they shift around to get there. Now, again, they're running at the wing side. And, if you look at the blocks on that side of the D line, all right, the 3 technique here, the guy just outside shoulder of the guard, he's like his knees getting bent, he's getting rolled up on, the Mike backer is coming in to the inside. So, that combo block is, really successful there. So, definitely want to go outside of that. They've opened up that hole. Now they've got, that wing look there, and it's really a tight end and a receiver with Higbee and Josh Reynolds in the backfield. So Higbee is matched up. Reynolds goes off and blocks on the outside player there, the invert player there, right? So strong safety outside linebacker type position, and Higbee's man-to-man blocking on the defensive end. Now, the end right away tries to come inside. And again, Higbee, Everett, they're not great blockers. They're not great blockers. So, him against Tack McKinley, I like Tack McKinley in that. So, right away, you want to go outside of that first block, that inside block. But hey, as soon as you see a little bit of red in that gap, Gurley should take this thing outside. All right. There's an unblocked player out there. He's a corner. You know what? Get to the edge and break a tackle from a corner. You're Todd Gurley. You're much bigger than him. And corners generally don't like tackling. So just do it. That's where that thing should go. But, overall, he's just really indecisive. He's just kind of hopping around in the hole a little bit. If he would have just banged this thing to the inside right away, I would have been fine with that too. He's getting more than the yard that he got. So better reads, more decisiveness. The problems that Gurley's having, there's some scheme as we discussed before. There is, offensive line issues from time to time. And it's on Gurley as well. So that's going to be it for today. So honestly, it's getting a little tough to bring you new content because there's so much with the Bengals that is repetitive. So many of the Bengals problems we keep seeing week in and week out, and that's not a very strong endorsement of the coaching that they're getting. That a lot of these problems aren't changing. So if you want to hear more about some of the Bengals issues, feel free to go back and explore the archives, both of the podcast and on Cincy Jungle and some of my film rooms, because there's a lot of stuff going on there. But again, it's been the same. Stick with me. When this team gets better, we're going to have some really cool stuff for you. And I will keep bringing it, keep breaking down that film and bringing you some fun stuff and giving you an inside eye of what's going on, breaking down these plays. I do appreciate you joining me and hoping to get another win, hoping to get a first win here, and do some good things. But keep an eye out. Next week on the bye week, we will be looking at quarterbacks. We will be talking about the NFL draft and the quarterback position. So come back for that, and keep on coming back. I'm gonna be here. We keep losing. I'll keep breaking down exactly how we're losing. But hopefully we get to breaking down why we're winning at some point in this season. So